Afternoon, everyone. Just waiting for our attendees to come in. Takes a little time for everyone to enter the meeting. Just wait a little bit longer and see if we've got more people waiting to come in, and then we'll get started. Okay, let's get started. So welcome and good afternoon, everyone. My name's Patricia Alexander. I'm the MD of Shared Interest, if you don't know me. Welcome to our second Shared Interest event during Fair Trade Fortnight. Today, we're going to be concentrating on East Africa. We opened our East African office in 2006, so it's one of the first offices that we did, our regional offices that we did open, and it's been very successful. So if you have any questions, if you could use the Q&A chat box, which is just at the bottom of the screen, it says Q&A. If you just post your questions in there, and then once you've had the presentation, we'll see if we can get through as many of your questions as possible. And so I'm going to hand over now to our lending manager in East Africa, Immaculate. Immaculate, over to you.
Thank you, Patricia. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to this member event, which will focus on East Africa. But before I proceed, I would like to introduce my two colleagues, Josephine and Kennedy. Josephine is the customer representative in East Africa, and Kennedy is the lending officer. So just to give you a brief about East Africa, the region, as Patricia has mentioned, has been, we have been open since 2006. Currently, we are working in 4 countries, mainly Kenya, Uganda, Rwanda, and Tanzania. But we also have a client in Malawi, and we are hoping to increase the number of accounts in that country as well. So currently, we have about 49 customers, and this is a mix of cooperatives as well as private limited companies. And in our portfolio, the bulk of the customers are actually in coffee production. So as you can see on the slide, 74% of our lending is actually focused on coffee. And this is partly because the coffee producers are the ones who are fair trade certified, because our lending is generally geared towards the fair trade certified production. We also have customers a bit in handcrafts and a bit in fruits and vegetables and a few in cocoa. And we are trying to diversify this kind of portfolio, but of course, maintaining the customers who are following the fair trade principles. So as I mentioned, we are currently focused on the main 4 countries as well as Malawi. The bulk of our lending is in Uganda, and all this, the bulk of it is also in coffee, just as I mentioned, followed by Rwanda, then Kenya and Tanzania. Currently in Malawi, there is one customer who is a coffee producer, but we are also targeting some cereals producers there as well in the course of the year. And this is just to give you a picture in terms of the breakdown, in terms of the kind of commodities that we are financing, as mentioned earlier. So coffee takes the bulk of the accounts, but we intend to diversify as we go along. So regarding the impact of climate change, in East Africa, we have had cases where temperatures have really been increasing, and we have had cases of increasing drought. So the net effect is that, of course, the agricultural production is heavily affected, including the coffee producers. So what happens is that either you have prolonged droughts, or you have almost, when the rains come, it's heavy flooding, which of course have led to cases of landslides. I think sometime in 2020, just when COVID had started and the lockdowns had started, the East Africa region had quite some heavy flooding. And this is just a picture on the left that shows some part of Uganda. There was quite some heavy flooding, which affected even some of our customers. Then on the right, there is a slide that shows some part of northern Kenya in a previous year where we had some severe drought, where the customers, the producers or whoever was planting and dealing in crops, they faced a lot of challenges, and a lot of animals died. You can see how the picture looks. It was really a bad situation. The other bit when it comes to climate change is that it increases prevalence of pests and diseases, and these affect both the crops as well as the animals. So what would happen is that there is a lot more diseases during that season because of the changes. And this normally affects the small scale holders because they need to spend more money when it comes to basically dealing with prevention as well as dealing with curing the animals and preventing the damage to the crops. It increases the cost of production by just in the process of handling the vectors which are affecting the animals. And part of this has led to an increasing cases of locusts. I think towards 2019, 2020, East Africa faced a lot of challenges in terms of the locusts. There was some locust invasion. So I'm sharing, this is a slide in the northern part of the country where there were swarms, large swarms of locusts, which affected quite a number of, quite many regions in the country. And I'm not sure whether you are familiar with this, but generally what would happen is when the locusts come, they will basically consume a lot of green vegetation. So if you had maybe producers or customers or maybe small, let me say small scale farmers who have planted food crops, they would definitely be affected because the locusts would basically destroy and consume all the production. So if somebody had, say, let me say a farm of wheat or a farm of maize or corn, they would get destroyed and basically just consumed such that by the harvest time, they really do not have anything much to harvest. Then in terms of the effects of climate change, particularly on coffee production, we have had discussions with our producers, both in Kenya, Rwanda, and Uganda. And what they have mentioned is that the net effect is generally reduced production. So what we notice is that because of climate change, either the rains are coming a bit early or they're coming later. And when they do, the volume of the rains is not adequate. Or sometimes instead of it being adequate, it becomes excess, which means it's a case of flooding. So like I mentioned in the Uganda case, there was heavy flooding, which actually washed away even some of the houses, the animals, even some of the coffee trees as well. So the climate change is definitely affecting the coffee farmers. Then now when it comes to the changes in the harvest season, it means the production cycles which have been there are interrupted. Rwanda has one coffee season while Uganda has 2 seasons. They will have the main season, which happens later in the year, say from September to December, while the minor season starts around from March to April, May. So what would happen is that there are changes to these seasons to an extent that the farmers are not able to plan adequately in advance. Then what happens is that because of the reduced production, there is a very, very sharp increase in the prices of coffee. So like in the last 1 year, a lot of producers have said they are unable to actually buy the same quantities they used to buy before because the price has almost tripled. So for example, if somebody used to buy maybe $2 of a certain kilogram of sherry, right now it increases to $6. So with the same amount of funds that they had, they are not able to fulfill the obligations that they have with the buyers with the same quantity. So that has also led to a challenge. And like I mentioned, in terms of dealing with the vectors and the diseases, there is an increase in the cost of production. The other bit is that because of the climate change and the landslides, and there is a lot of soil erosion. So of course, the producers have to come up with many different ways of trying to protect the farms and try to basically maintain the quality that they harvest, they try to improve. And that also leads to a cost in the production that they're facing. In terms of the mitigation, so a lot of producers have come up with training programs on good agricultural practices. So the main aim of this is basically to increase the quantity and increase the quality of the coffee that they're producing. But the other bit is also to ensure that going by the fact that coffee, sometimes because of climate change and other reasons in the market, sometimes maybe market changes and market issues, they have found themselves in a situation whereby either they have produced well, but they're not able to get a good price for their coffee in some cases. So what happens is that they end up making a loss. So to handle the issue of food, they are trying to integrate the coffee trees into the coffee plantations. I mean, to have banana trees within the coffee plantation. So the idea is not to stop the coffee production, but to have the coffee production in line with other food commodities that will be able to support them even when the coffee crop is not doing well. So that way they're able to ensure their own food supply. The other bit is that they are being trained on soil and water management activities. So some producers are able to get some of their staff to be trained so that they come and train the farmers. But in different places, sometimes you'd have a case whereby they join or they partner with the government offices. So like in Rwanda, they would have the coffee board, which is the national coffee board, which that will send they're basically their field officers to come and train the farmers to do that. Same thing with Uganda, they would have the coffee authority that will send their officers to come and train the producer groups in terms of how to deal with the soil and water management. So this is just steps to ensure that soil erosion is minimized, things like mulching to ensure that the soil moisture content is retained, basic things which a farmer can do at their own level that do not require a lot of machinery. And this is basically intended to help even the small scale farmer to be able to maintain their production and increase as time goes by, even if the country is trying to deal with the climate change at a higher level. So the other bit is that in East Africa, governments have been distributing drought tolerant seeds for the food crops. And the idea here is to try and ensure that food supply is actually sustained regardless or despite the climate changes that have been happening. So I mentioned about the drought that happened in or has been happening in East Africa, especially in Kenya, in the northern part of the country. So what will happen is that the government will be sharing the seed, the drought-resistant crops, which can be planted even when the rains fail. The producers will still be able to reap a benefit and reap a crop that can sustain them through the difficult times. So this is just a picture I've picked from one of our customers. So I'm not sure whether you can all see, but at the back of it, there's some banana plantations, just to show that where we have the customers. So this is a coffee washing station with some drying tables ahead. So beyond that is a coffee plantation. And what the farmers are doing is that they're trying to integrate together with the coffee. So the benefit to this is that they will have the food crop, but then the bananas are also providing a shade tree for the coffee. So there are two benefits in this kind of scenario. So this is just some of the activities that the producers have been doing. And just to finish up, I will introduce one of our farmers called David from Huye Coffee. Yes, so this is David from Huye Coffee. He's going to share with us about the activities that Huye Coffee has been doing.
Yeah.
Okay, David, you're welcome.
Yeah, thank you very much for your presentation. It's very, very interesting. My name is David. I'm working for David and Family Company, which is based in Rwanda. So we are working in the coffee sector. And we started the business in 2012. We are located in the South Province of Rwanda, especially in the Huye district. Now we have two washing stations, one called Tare, another one called Gako, and we process like 1,000 tons of cherries every year. And probably we are exporting like 6 or 7 containers to the international market. This company is working with some coffee farmers around. I think until now we are working with like around 10,000 coffee farmers in Huye. And we are working also with shared interests to finance our activity and to be able to purchase cherries from farmers, process and export to the international market. So this is one of our washing station for the GACO. We face also the climate change issue in the South region. It increased the temperature, increased the rainfall, flooding, and prolonged dry season, as always. And the region is mountainous, therefore they suffer heavy soil erosion. Some are extreme events, including severe droughts and floods. Food security is affected due to the vulnerability of certain crops to increased temperatures. In South region, the coffee tree is very sensitive to change in climate. Higher temperatures force coffee growers to cultivate higher lands, which are more prone to erosion. Greater attention to water management, irrigation infrastructure is therefore needed to meet future water demands in all parts of the country. In recent years, vulnerability of climate change has increased in different sectors, like high frequency of prolonged droughts and heavy rainfall causing rain off. This time we have a lot of rain. There is a deforestation due to the land being valleys and the lowlands. There have been increasing floods, which cause heavy losses in human and animal lives and damage to property. To address this, basic adaptation measures are possible. There is increasing water supply and managing demand and supply differently. We just have a dry table, as you see, made of cement to avoid cutting down of trees. That's why our table looks very strong, and you can just have enough quantity of coffee. So in the agriculture sector, face unique constraints. Due to high population density in Rwanda, the land remains deficient and most farmers practice rain-fed agriculture. So land at high risk of erosion due to its mountainous terrain. This disruption of sowing diet, lower yields, intensification of crop disease, and reduced irrigation water. And the agriculture policy in Rwanda encourages change in production techniques so that the sector grow from subsistence agriculture to new agriculture techniques. This is one of our farmer is just in the plantation, try to maintain pruning to see if the production can be increased. The impact of climate change in Huye coffee farmers. Here, the southern province has become increasingly dry over the past 20 years. And the rate of the crop growth period has decreased significantly. Should the trend continue, it is expected that productivity will drop more than 50%. So agriculture production, especially food production, will be severely affected by climate change. It is therefore necessary to develop appropriate adaptation strategies. So here you see our production manager. We are with the buyers from Japan and with farmers, explain how the farmers produce and how the buyers will buy. This is to link farmers and the coffee buyers. And you see also we have visitors, and we try to see if they can just explain or well understand the situation of the climate change in our region. The community have developed several measures to adapt. Through these measures are inadequate. So this includes diversification of subsistence activities, the use of genetic material tolerant to drought and the high temperature, the adjustment in cropping operations, income generating activities, labor, and the change to off-farm livelihoods, among others. Mitigating the impact of climate change, we are optimizing coffee productivity for smallholder farmers by farm planning and record keeping. This is our task. As you know, we have staff on the field who work with the farmers and teach them how to do what we need to just improve the quality and increase the production. The soil sampling and analysis, land preparation for new planting, renovation of erosion control structures, and post-harvest handling, and general coffee crop management. This is our task. We try to see, as Immaculée said recently, we just see what we can do to just fight against climate change causes. Farmer mobilization and training. This is a task of those field officers, and the farmer field school established and the facilitation. So good agriculture practices in coffee. So this means coffee crop nutrition and the quality parameters, and the integrated crop management, pests and disease in coffee and their control, coffee crop nutrition, coffee and tree feed planting, transplanting, safe and effective use of pesticides. So here I can just mention we have a project of seedling production, and we have also nurseries of tree, which we have to mix with the coffee plantation to see if we can just reduce the impact of the sun and or impact of the rain, heavy rain. So coffee production and climate smart practices such as the use of shade, yes, what I was saying, tree nurseries establishment, mulching, yes, organic composting technology. So we are here, we just teach farmers how to do a compost and how to use manure instead of using chemical fertilizer. So, and the crop diversification also, as Immaculate said, we try to mix coffee with the bananas, and also we put other trees like mango, like orange, something like that. And there is also agroforestry. soil and water conservation techniques. I think that is what I have to say. And thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you. Thank you to both Immaculate and David. Immaculate, if you could just stop sharing your screen, thanks, and put your camera back on so that we can see you. Is Josephine and Kennedy joining us for the Q&A session as well? So Josephine and Kennedy, if you could put your cameras on. I hope you enjoyed that, everybody, and found it interesting. Please do put if you've got any questions, please do put them into the Q&A at the bottom of the screen. We do have a couple of questions. So the first question, I think, could be answered by both our team and David. So David, maybe you could start. The question is, are your producers being trained in permaculture techniques? So using bioecosystems and sustainable ways of production. David, have we lost you? I know you were having problems.
Sorry again. Can you just repeat the question? I didn't.
Are your producers being trained in permaculture production techniques?
Mm-hmm. So yeah, we as even myself, I am producing coffee in our own farm. So we have a team, a technical team at the company level, which go down and then just meet farmers, and then we do demonstration of agriculture technique practices very well. And then farmers go back to just do it in their own farm. So we do have 5 field officers. We have agronomists, and recently we have a support from NAEP, the coffee board, Rwanda Coffee Board. They help us to just see how we can just reach many farmers to teach them how to grow in quality improvement and the quantity increasing. It's okay.
Thank you, David. Immaculate are one of the team. In terms of what we know from our customers in East Africa, are many of them using sustainable production practices?
I think quite a number of them are, because part of the certification requirements, especially for the cooperatives who are fair trade certified, is that they need to follow the required procedures and avoid the chemicals. So in a sense, yes, they are complying to those requirements and trying to produce the coffee organically. I hope that answers the question.
Thank you, Immaculate. So the next question is the cost of pesticides and inorganic fertilizers very significant? David, maybe you would like to answer that question. Are you finding the cost of organic fertilizer and any pesticides that you need to use very expensive currently?
Yeah, just now the problem is the high cost, which is a problem now, is to get chemical fertilizer. So we have now a new program. We distribute livestock to the farmers, like awards. Then we teach them how to make manure. It's very easy done buying chemical fertilizer. You get me?
Yes,
Thank you.
Thank you. What about amongst our customers in East Africa then? Kennedy, Immaculate Kennedy, anybody?
Most of our customers that we work with have resolved into using organic fertilizer, and as David has said, most of them, especially in Rwanda, what we've noticed is that they have this the cow program where they distribute cows to their farmers.
Yeah.
So this one really helps them in income generating, as well as producing the manure that is required. And at times it's usually also the coffee husks which are produced in the washing station can be mixed with the manure to get a good compost.
Yeah.
Sorry, did you want to add anything to that? I forgot, I'm muting myself. It's not helpful. So, Immaculate, did you want to add anything, or are you happy with that answer?
No, I wanted to say you needed to admit yourself. That's all.
Thank you. Okay, so the next question is interesting. So in terms of the climate crisis that the world's facing at the moment, and how producer and farmers are adapting to how they're affected, what is the what do we think? How do we think the finance needs for organisations like Shared Interest has changed, and what the needs would be? So I'll come to Immaculate first, and then I'll ask David what he would like to see Shared Interest providing. So Immaculate, I'll ask you first how you think the needs of the producers have changed as a result of the climate crisis.
Yes, I believe their needs have changed, because previously the seasons were quite predictable. You know, the season is starting at this point, so it was easy for the customers to plan ahead. But now, because of climate change and the changes in the harvest patterns have affected the production levels. And then that in turn has also affected the pricing. So what happens is that 1 year, maybe the customer who produces 2 tons of coffee, by the same amount, the next year they'll not be able to gather the same volume, which means in turn, their financing actually requirements increase within a very short period of time. So which of course affect their production going forward. If they're not able to generate enough sales, they'll not be able to now pay their farmers as well. So now we are required as now the lenders to try and understand the details of their financing before we can finance them. So in a sense, it forces the lenders to basically go down into the root cause to see what is affecting the production of the customers, so that you can actually tailor-make the financing to suit their needs at that moment in time. Because the climate change, it affects not just the production, but even the seasons when it comes to the repayments. Then of course, add all the other market conditions that are happening, COVID and the shipping issues. You have to basically take a longer step to understand the challenges that are, how climate change is affecting the producers before you give the financing. So just giving the money on its own without understanding the root causes might not really resolve the problem. We have to take a deeper look and see how we can tailor-make the facility to suit them better.
Thank you, Immaculate. You sort of answered the second part of the question about how we're responding to this. But David, maybe would you like to comment on if you think there is anything else that the social lenders could do in order to support the crisis, climate crisis that producers are facing?
Yeah, just I think we just have seen the impact of climate change during these 3 or 4 years ago. The production of coffee went down, and the income to the farmers was very low. So that's why we just try to introduce this technique system to mix coffee with the, because some we have a lot of rain, and then another day we have a lot of sun. You see, every thing changed very quick. So we introduced to produce the trees I made a small project, and we just see how we can just try to introduce that technique to mix coffee with bananas and with some trees. And also, lastly, we organized a small event to award farmers, and most of awards was the cows and goats, but the purpose was to teach them how to produce the manure at home, mixed with a coffee pulp, and then they can just prepare some nutrient to the coffee. So as a sample, we just worked with, I saw that it can just have improvement. So we do have our own plantation, coffee plantation. I just put those stuff there, and trees looks differently as the farm which doesn't have a mix of those things. So it can help us to just reduce the impact of climate change, and we're still waiting also another solution or idea from the research center or outside.
Thank you, David. So this is a question about the market price, and the asking, so if the market price of coffee increases, is that always a good thing, or does it present problems for the producers?
That's if the coffee price increase on the market, it means if the farmers can get more and do some small project. So this time now in Huye Mountain, we teach farmers to have a plan every year, to have a plan. In that plan, you can just say, okay, this a percentage of income we can just buy livestock. We can just use for extend the land. We can do some. We teach them to do small project. So after that, when the income is increased, they can just do more. You see.
Yeah, I think it's always good if farmers and producers can get more for the produce. I think in my experience of working with shared interests, sometimes in the season when the price goes up, it's often a challenge for cooperatives who've already agreed contracts prior to the price increasing, and therefore the struggle often to buy all of the coffee or the produce that they need, because farmers are expecting a higher price and the contracts have already been agreed. I don't know if you wanted to add anything about that from our East African team, but I think I have seen that. But it's always good when farmers get more for their products.
Yeah, the farmers do benefit from the higher prices. But then now, when you have the cooperatives who need to buy from a large number of farmers, it becomes tricky, especially if they had done their projection saying they're going to buy the coffee at a certain price, and then it increases. If they, on the other end, when the international buyers have not yet adjusted their prices, then there is a possibility that their profit margins will reduce. So the farmer will definitely benefit, but the cooperatives and the companies which are processing the coffee, their profit margins will reduce if the increase is very steep, as we have seen in the last few months.
Thank you. So probably one of our last questions here, but are we seeing any evidence of international financial support coming into East Africa to help the farming communities to adapt or mitigate against climate? David, do you want to start? Do you see any international aid coming to help your cooperative?
Yes, of course.
You want to,
yeah.
You want to expand on what you're seeing, or are you just happy to do that? that.
Yeah, we are just we are interested to be part of. Yeah, because we have a trio. We just have an example, and I have seen it can be working very well. You see.
Yes. Okay. Thank you. What about from our customers' perspective? Are we seeing anything across East Africa? Josephine, would you like to come in? Immaculate, go on. Go ahead, Immaculate.
I think Josephine, you can go ahead.
Yeah. Good afternoon. I'm Josephine. In terms of international aid, I think the programs in the region are geared towards certification programs, because certification will cover a wider range, such as agricultural practices trainings, and then help them to learn those basic requirements so that they can be able to acquire certification and actually maintain it. And then also maybe technical advice to, or other technical assistance to be able to generate good records that will be able to link them to financials. So that is where we see the target is mostly, but not actually to financing.
Thank you, Josephine. Immaculate, did you want to add anything to that?
Yes, just to say that there have been a lot of partnerships in different kinds of, with different partners. Some of them it's government agencies and some of them it's other NGOs. And in some cases we see basically customers getting training support in how to come up with the kind of structures they need that David had mentioned, the mulching, the good agricultural practices. While in other cases, they will be getting more practical support in maybe setting up structures or coming up with ways of recycling waste, how to deal with the water waste from maybe the drying milling machines or the wet milling machines. So it depends on the kind of partners that the producers get. But yes, there are some across the region to different capacities, but yes, there is some support that they are receiving.
Thank you. And this is the final question, so it probably doesn't need a long answer, but is there any technical help available to help farmers forecast and know when rains are coming, or what the climate, how accurate can they forecast the climate that's coming to impact the crops? David, would you like to, do you have any good way of forecasting what's coming in terms of rains? You seem to mute at the moment, David. Could you unmute yourself?
Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah, good.
This issue is very complicated. It's very new here. So we try to do what we can. And we would like to know exactly, or technical we can just put on the place to see if we can just fight against that case of climate change. So it's very new. So we see what we in our capacity. So we can just produce those trees. We can just see if we make some profit by buying those animals to distribute to the farmers, teach them, even someone who is able to buy himself. We just give them advice to do this, in terms of increasing production and have more benefit or more income on coffee. So it's very new for us. We are waiting for other technical advice to do or to put in place for this problem.
Thank you. Immaculate, did you want to finish off for us?
Yes, when it comes to forecasting, especially the weather patterns, I will say previously they were more reliable than they are right now. And what we have seen, especially in Kenya, Previously, they would say maybe the rains will start at this point. But what we have seen is that the long-term forecasts have stopped being reliable. So the ones which are reliable, it's more of the rains are starting in the next 2-3 days, which of course for somebody who is in farming, that timing is too short for them to prepare. But even then when the rains come, it might be for a longer period than projected or for a shorter period than they had planned ahead. So I would say over time, in the recent years, the accuracy of the forecast has also reduced. So it is something which, yes, the farmers can try to rely on, but it does not help 100% of the time.
Thank you. So thank you everyone for joining us today. I hope you've enjoyed this brief webinar, and I hope you can join us for our future ones that are coming. And thank you to everyone who has contributed on the panel today, and enjoy the rest of your day. Bye for now.